Chinese brand Omoda's initial foray into the UK market depends largely on this car, the Omoda E5. This all-electric compact family hatch crossover enters a tough segment but brings value and fashionable design for those prepared to try something a little different.
After years of promising to flood our market with electric vehicles, China finally has, with all manner of new EVs from unfamiliar brands arriving to take on the established manufacturers. Here's another, the Omoda E5, a Chery automotive group product that sells alongside the conventional petrol version of this car that was launched just before it. As with other Chinese EVs from brands like BYD, MG, GWM Ora and Leapmotor, this one primarily sells on value, technology and design. You probably aren't yet familiar with this Omoda E5. It's a lower mid-sized family hatch / crossover model aimed right at the heart of the compact part of the family market, with appeal somewhere between family hatch, think something like a Vauxhall Astra Electric, and small SUV crossover, think something like a Hyundai Kona Electric. So why might you choose this Omoda over established players like those? Well, to find out, as usual, you're going to need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. Of course, there's no indecisiveness with the single-speed transmission of this E5 electric model, which gets 201 brake horsepower from its front-mounted E-motor, which means that 62 miles an hour can be dispatched in 7.2 seconds en route to 107 miles an hour, the kind of performance you'd be very unwise to exercise if you wanted to get anywhere close to the claimed 257-mile range figure from the Blade-style 61 kilowatt-hour battery pack. This, of course, would require near permanent progress in the most frugal of the three drive modes, Eco, and possibly even selection of the limp home style extreme energy saving mode that's also provided. You'll also need to be frequently selecting the fiercest of the three provided energy recovery level brake regeneration settings. Choose between low, medium or high, the latter strong, but some way off a one pedal feel style in terms of the way that speed is scrubbed off when you release the throttle. Unfortunately, there are no brake regen steering wheel paddles. You have to fiddle about in screen menus to alter the effect. In a curious but potentially irritating touch, a breathy female voice articulates the drive mode chosen as you select it. We mentioned the slightly jerky drivability of the petrol model. Omoda's gone all out to ensure that there's none of that with this E5, building in two brake-related features. Brake pitch control supposedly smooths out stopping, and a brake sensitivity mode provides two options for adjusting brake pedal feel sensation, comfort or sport. Overkill? Well, we thought so as well. It'd be easier if smoothness was just built in at source. Still, the end effect is much more of a mature driving experience than with the petrol model, with dynamics that seem to be helped rather than hindered by this EV variant's extra 250 kilograms of curb weight. The ride's slightly on the firm side, but that does at least mean that body rolls well controlled at speed through the turns, though the syrupy feel of the steering won't encourage you to put that to the test. Omoda says that the suspension, steering and anti-roll bars have all been retuned over the Chinese market model to cater for differing European tastes. And Europe gets independent rear suspension on this car rather than the cruder torsion beam setup fitted in other markets. Despite all of this, we still think lots more work needs to be done here if the brand is to match the dynamic standards set by established European, Japanese and Korean rivals in this segment. But for the kind of undemanding suburban driving most owners will usually engage in, none of this will of course matter much. The fact that some other similarly sized EVs provide better refinement at a cruise might be more significant, but Omoda compensates with a wider range of camera drive assist features than almost any competitor can offer as standard. Omoda is determined that fashionable design should be a major selling point of its models, which is why you'd be unlikely to mistake the Omoda 5 for anything else. Certainly not the two cars this 4-metre-long compact family crossover is primarily pitched against in Europe, the Nissan Qashqai, which is slightly longer, and the Hyundai Kona, which is a little shorter. The 5 certainly visually stands apart from rivals like those with its rakish profile and blanked-out C-pillar. The silhouette's quite slippery too, with a drag factor of 0.281 CD. Subtle roof rails and rear privacy glass are standard fit, and this Omoda's 18-inch aero-style wheels can be changed for more aggressive-looking 19-inch rims if you pay the extra for plusher Noble trim. If we were looking at the combustion version of this car, the main visual talking point would be its huge, strikingly intricate grille, which disappointingly gets replaced by a rather boring bluff front end in this EV version, incorporating a wide flap that rises to reveal the charging socket. This E5 gets modified side wings too, but the narrow upper daytime running light strips remain, as do the large corner cutouts incorporating the LED headlights. The rear gets a full-width light bar with slim LED tail lamp clusters that illuminate with quite a striking 3D signature, and there's this rather overly aggressive-looking roof spoiler with race-style cutouts. Opt for that Noble spec level, you get the option of a contrast-coloured black roof. As usual, of course, what's more important is what you can't see, in this case, rather an old platform, the Chery Group's modular T1X chassis, which was first introduced way back in 2017. So, new looks on old underpinnings. Is that what will be served up inside? Well, a bit of cabin tech is certainly promised by daytime running lights that illuminate as you approach to get in. What you get behind the wheel actually varies quite a lot depending on whether you've chosen this E5 model or the alternative combustion variant. And not just because this E5 lacks the centre console gear shifter and EV-style instrument display of its petrol counterpart. Omoda designed this electric model's interior later and says that as a result, it's half a generation ahead. What that means in reality is the provision of softer touch surfaces, neater integration of things like speaker covers and window switches, and a cleaner design for this high-set centre console that's supposed to provide a sporty, cockpit-style feel. Either way, the shiny, slightly chintzy feel of the cabin decor clearly betrays this interior design as Far Eastern rather than European, but you might like that. There's certainly no shortage of stylistic effort here. The bright trimming on doors and dashboard, the smart ash-style inlays on the fascia and centre console, and the white stitching on the doors, the dash top and the side of the centre console. There are some nice touches too. Each door card has an intricate upper speaker grille and stylised wavy central lines. There's a dished steering wheel with touch-sensitive buttons and a large dash-top speaker for the standard 8-speaker Sony audio system. Plus, there's a 60-colour ambient lighting system that varies itself with the selected drive mode. The wheel gains a gear-shifting column stalk in this EV model. As is the fashion these days, a single wide panel mounted on top of the dashboard houses both of the required screens, which in this case are each 10.25 inches in size. As we said earlier, the LCD display for the instruments feels quite a bit more advanced in this E5 variant, with a central car graphic that gets replaced by a Tesla-like interactive road placement display as you drive. Off to the left is a digital speedo, but as usual on Chinese model screens, the other main things you'll need to know, time and temperature at the top of the frame, with battery capacity and range at the bottom, are in digits small enough to suggest that Oriental buyers must habitually have 20/20 vision. Your audio selection is more easily visible in a box on the bottom right, with a panel above which can be tailored to show either trip data, navigational info or tyre pressures. Everything else you'll need to know is of course on this central monitor, which has a home screen that displays in either rows of icons or rather small customizable widgets. We've got nav, radio, battery charge, vehicle settings and phone ones here. Key shortcut options for phone, media, nav, car and so on reside along the bottom of the screen, along with access to the climate menu. Unlike with the combustion model, there's no separating out of climate controls into a separate control panel. Like quite a few other brands, Omoda mistakenly thinks this is part of progress. The media system's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring works quite well. Its voice assistant doesn't, though it can be used to adjust the sunroof, the air conditioning, the ambient lighting or the headlights. And this monitor has a built-in Wi-Fi option and places to store your pictures and videos. What else? Well, you might think that a general lack of physical buttons is a good thing. Unfortunately, we don't. The driving position seems a touch high set, and we found that unless you position the squared off wheel unnaturally high, you can't see the whole of the instrument screen. But otherwise, the ergonomics seem fine, and the sculpted seats are quite comfortable. Underneath all the shininess, the cabin's obviously built down to a price. Plastics away from your direct view are usually hard and brittle, but that's okay for the money being asked. And there are some nice touches to compensate, like lovely illuminated vanity mirrors in the sun visors, a forgotten phone reminder feature, invigorating and camping cabin mode settings, and more controversially, a pet mode to keep your pooch cool in the car. As for storage space, well, the lower part of the centre console has plenty of it, along with a 12-volt socket and both USB-A and USB-C ports. Above, you get a deep-cooled lidded box between the seats, and ahead of that, a lidded cubby. Nearer the dashboard, on the top surface of this console, a sliding lid pulls back to reveal a wireless charging mat and cup holders. Plus, you get reasonable sizing for the glove box and door bins. Not so good is all-round visibility, limited by the sloping rear roofline, the wide C-pillars and the tiny rear windows, so you're going to need the standard rear parking sensors and reversing camera. Time to take a look in the rear. Now, the money being asked here might easily buy you a small hatch or crossover that's Super Mini derived. With a wheelbase length of 2,630mm, the Omoda E5 is a little larger than that. Think somewhere between Volkswagen's T-Roc and Tiguan SUVs, if you want a point of comparison. And you feel that inside. It's a pity that the bench doesn't slide, nor does its backrest recline, but legroom is okay, and thanks to a low central tunnel, it'd be easier to fit in a third middle-seated adult if you absolutely had to than it usually is with a car of this class. But the small rear windows, dark trimming and sloping roofline all make it feel a touch claustrophobic, with the latter issue severely limiting headroom, so lanky occupants might struggle. There are no reading lights either. Compensation comes with the reasonably sized door bins and central armrests that are sometimes lacking in this class of car, and the smart shiny panels in the back of the bucket-style front sport chairs which have seat-back pockets. There are USB-A and USB-C ports as well. When it comes to boot space, any pretensions that this Omoda has to SUV-ness rather fall away because there's quite a lot less luggage capacity than you'd usually get in this class in one of those. With both powertrains, the manually lifted tailgate rises to reveal a 380-litre space, which is certainly more family hatch-like, but we'll take that in return for the standard provision under the boot floor of something you almost never see these days, a full-size spare wheel. Above the base, which isn't height adjustable, is a square and practical space with 4 tie-downs and a light and a 12-volt socket on the left. Plus, there's a low loading lip, so it's easier to slide heavy items in. You don't get any bag hooks though, or any kind of ski hatch or convenient 40-20-40 rear seat back split. So if you've 2 rear-seated passengers, long items like skis will need to go on the roof. Fold the rear bench forward and 1,079 litres of space is freed up. Unlike its Chinese counterpart BYD, Omoda isn't immediately trying to match prices against the established players in this segment. This E5 EV variant was priced from around $33,000 as we filmed in this base comfort spec, with a further £1,500 necessary for plusher Noble trim. As we filmed, there was talk of a future smaller battery 48 kilowatt-hour E5 variant with a lesser 134 bhp motor, which may or may not be offered at some point. You might expect a new, largely EV brand to be selling online with agency models and subscription services, but no, Omoda is selling its cars here via traditional dealerships, with 60 open at the time of our test and 100 UK outlets expected to be in place by 2026. They cover most major UK centres, and you can find your nearest one by going to omodauk.com. The brand lent heavily on advice from its partner Jaguar Land Rover for its launch into the UK. Omoda parent company Chery handles local Chinese production of the Evoque, the Discovery Sport and Jaguar's XF and XE models for that Far Eastern market. Omoda likes to think that this is some kind of crossover, but really it's just a conventional family hatch. So, what about the value proposition here? If you're considering this all-electric Omoda E5, there's a vast amount of competition around this Chinese maker's chosen £33,000 to £35,000 price point. This kind of figure is about what you'd pay for a Kia EV3, a Hyundai Kona electric, or base Vauxhall Astra electric, and is just above what you'd need for entry-level, decent range electric models from MG. But we'd point out to someone open to an unknown brand and considering an E5 that not much more would get you a Leapmotor C10 SUV, which offers a lot more car for the money and cost around £36,500 as we filmed. Where Omoda hopes it'll have an advantage over most, if not all of the cars we've just mentioned, is when it comes to standard spec. As you'd hope, there's lots included as standard. As mentioned, we've got base comfort spec here, which includes LED headlights and tail lamps, 18-inch alloy wheels, a powered tailgate, a rear view camera, keyless entry, power folding mirrors, adaptive cruise control, all-round parking sensors and rear privacy glass. Inside there's a 10.25-inch LCD driver instrument display, 6-way power adjustment for the driver's seat, a 50-watt cooled wireless charging mat, a 60-colour ambient lighting system and 2-zone air conditioning. Media functions are dealt with by another 10.25-inch curved screen which incorporates a voice assistant, a Sony 8-speaker audio system and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. Stretching to plusher Noble trim also gets you a powered sunroof, a 360-degree surround view camera system, passenger seat four-way electrical adjustment and an air purifier. Remember that you'll have to budget an extra £500 for your choice of paint colour, unless you opt for the only standard shade, which is Galena Silver. We've got tourmaline grey here. Options with Noble trim include a two-tone roof and bigger 19-inch wheels. It gets better too because there's an awful lot of standard safety kit. Automatic emergency braking and forward collision warning, lane departure warning, lane departure prevention and emergency lane keeping, rear collision warning, blind spot detection and rear cross traffic assist, intelligent speed control, an overspeed alarm and a driver monitoring system, plus door opening warning, HMA, automatic high beam, a child presence alarm and an intelligent avoidance system that will swerve away from wide vehicles if you get too close to them, plus 11 airbags, including the usual twin front, side and curtain ones, all linked to an e-call system. You're not going to do much better than that for safety provision in this segment, and most rivals can't match this standard tally. You shouldn't have particularly high expectations for efficiency when it comes to the base 1.6-litre petrol turbo Omoda 5, which might encourage you to find the extra the brand wants for the E5 electric version that we're trying here, which uses a 61.4 kilowatt-hour blade design battery with a claimed range of 257 miles, based around Omoda's claimed efficiency figure of 4.1 miles per kilowatt-hour. During this test, the trip computer's been telling us that we've been getting between 3.3 and 3.7 miles per kilowatt-hour. To get anywhere near Omoda's figure, you'll have to drive exclusively with the car in its most frugal eco drive setting, its energy recovery level set to high, and probably with its most intrusive extreme energy saving mode activated as well. And battery replenishment, well, you might find the charge socket's front placement irritating, no more reversing into parking bays. Disappointingly, the battery only charges at up to 80 kilowatts, but will replenish itself from a DC public charger from 10 to 80% in 40 minutes, or from 30 to 80% in 28 minutes. If you're AC charging from home using a conventional 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box, full charge from empty will require around 11 hours. The car will charge it up to 11 kilowatts, and if you're able to do that via an 11 kilowatt wall box from a 3-phase supply, the charging time will improve to around 8 hours. In this E5, a new energy section of the centre screen will enable you to manage your EV life. This gives you a power flow meter, allows you to choose charge settings, and can allow you to pre-climatise the cabin around your departure time. Most new brands offer comprehensive warranties, and this one is no different. Omoda includes a 7-year or 100,000 mile warranty with all its cars. Servicing needs are quite frequent for both powertrains. Garage visits are needed every year or 10,000 miles, whichever comes first. Affordable servicing plans are available though at point of purchase, and servicing turnaround times will be aided by a UK parts warehouse established in cooperation with DHL. There's 24/7 RAC roadside assistance too, which renews with each service up to the end of the warranty. Insurance groupings start from Group 34D, and for the E5 Noble, it's Group 35D. You can't imagine that Omoda is going to sell too many conventional petrol-powered 5 models here, but we'd expect a brighter sales future for this EV version. If you're already switching into the unknown with an EV, then also switching to an unknown brand might not seem too much of a further step, especially as this electric Omoda is either significantly better value or larger than many of its direct competitors, or both. Of course, you're going to need to like the divisive looks, and you'll need to be within reach of one of the relatively small number of UK Omoda dealers. Still, if you're okay on both of those counts, there's potentially a lot to like here.